Welcome to Dreamtale Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is The Pirate Cook. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. The Pirate Cook begins now, and when the story's final line has faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. The Pirate Cook. The storm had been terrible. For 3 days, the waves had thrown the ship around like a toy, and nobody on board had eaten a proper meal. Captain Blackwood stood at the wheel, with dark circles under his eyes. His crew of 30 men looked just as tired and hungry. The ship was called the Iron Whale, and it was one of the most feared pirate ships on the Eastern Sea. But right now, it did not look very frightening at all. The sails were torn, the deck was covered in seawater, and the kitchen below deck was a complete disaster. "Where is Morris?" the captain shouted. Morris had been the ship's cook for 5 years. He was not a great cook, but he could make simple meals that kept the crew going. A tall man with a red beard stepped forward. His name was Briggs, and he was the first mate. "Captain," he said carefully, "Morris fell during the storm. He broke his leg badly. He cannot stand, and he certainly cannot cook." Captain Blackwood closed his eyes and took a deep breath. A pirate ship without a cook was like a bird without wings. Hungry men could not fight. Hungry men could not sail properly. And worst of all, hungry men became angry men. "Does anyone on this ship know how to cook?" the captain asked, looking at his crew. Nobody spoke. These were fighting men. They knew how to use swords and guns. They knew how to climb ropes and read the stars. But cooking? That was not something pirates usually learned. Then, from behind a group of large sailors, a small voice said, "I can cook." Everyone turned around. Standing there was a boy of about 14. He was thin and short, with messy brown hair and quick dark eyes. His name was Finn, and he had joined the ship only 2 months ago. Most of the crew had barely noticed him. He worked in the lowest part of the ship, cleaning and carrying things. Briggs laughed loudly. You are just a boy. What do you know about cooking for 30 men?" Finn did not look away. "My mother ran a kitchen in Port Clara before she died," he said quietly. "I helped her every day from the time I was 6 years old. I know how to cook." The captain studied the boy for a long moment. He had no other choice. "Very well," he said. "You have one chance. Make us something to eat. If it is good enough, you become the new cook. If not, you go back to cleaning." Finn nodded and walked toward the stairs that led down to the kitchen. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his face calm. He had waited a long time for a chance like this. The kitchen was a mess. Pots and pans were scattered across the floor. bags of flour had broken open, and the white powder covered everything. But Finn had seen worse. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. First, he cleaned. He picked up every pot and pan, washed them with seawater, and put them back in their proper places. Then, he checked what food they had. There were potatoes, onions, dried fish, salt pork, some old carrots, and a few bags of rice. It was not much, but Finn knew he could work with it. He lit the fire in the small stove and started cutting the potatoes and onions. He put the salt pork in a large pot with water and let it boil to remove some of the salt. Then he added the potatoes, onions, and carrots. He found some dried herbs that Morris had never used and added those too. Within an hour, a wonderful smell began to rise from the kitchen. It floated up through the ship like magic. Men who had been lying in their beds, too tired and hungry to move, suddenly sat up and sniffed the air. "What is that smell?" asked a big sailor named Crow. "I do not know," said his friend, Dog-Ear Pete, "but it is making my stomach talk." When Finn carried the large pot up to the deck and began serving the stew, nobody laughed at him anymore. The men lined up quietly, holding their bowls. The first man to taste it was Briggs, who had laughed at Finn earlier. He took a big spoonful, and his eyes went wide. "This," he said slowly, "this is the best thing I have ever eaten on this ship." One by one, the other men agreed. The stew was rich and warm and full of flavor. It was simple food, but Finn had made it with such care that every bite felt like a small miracle. Men who had been arguing with each other just an hour ago were now sitting together, eating peacefully. Captain Blackwood ate 2 full bowls. Then he called Finn over. "Boy," he said, "from today, you are the cook of the Iron Whale." Finn smiled for the first time since he had joined the ship. "Thank you, Captain," he said. But not everyone was happy. A group of 3 men sat in the corner of the deck, watching Finn with cold eyes. Their leader was a man called Razor. He was tall and thin, with a scar across his left cheek. He had been on the ship for 10 years and believed that he should have more power. "A child is our cook," Razor whispered to his friends. "This ship is falling apart. Blackwood is getting old and weak. He cannot even find a real cook." His 2 friends, Mace and Stump, nodded in agreement. They had been loyal to Razor for a long time and always agreed with everything he said. Over the next few days, Finn worked harder than he had ever worked in his life. Every morning, he woke up before the sun and prepared breakfast. He made thick porridge with dried fruit when they had it, and warm bread when they did not. For lunch, he created different soups using whatever he could find. And for dinner, he always made something special. The crew began to change. Men who had been tired and angry started to smile more. They worked better because they were eating better. Finn learned each man's favorite foods and tried to make them when he could. Old Thomas liked his fish with extra salt. Young Billy preferred rice to potatoes. Crow wanted everything with onions. Finn also discovered something important. The kitchen was the one place on the ship where everyone came and everyone talked. While waiting for their food, men would share stories, complain about their problems, and sometimes even share their dreams. Finn listened to everything. He learned that Dog-Ear Pete was worried because he had not sent money to his mother in months. He heard that several men were angry because they had not found good treasure recently. And he noticed that Razor and his friends always sat apart from the others, whispering. One evening, while Finn was preparing dinner, Briggs came down to the kitchen. The big man sat on a barrel and watched Finn work. "You know, boy," Briggs said, "you have done something that I could not do in 5 years as first mate." "What is that?" Finn asked, not looking up from his cutting board. You have made these men happy. Before you came, there were fights almost every day. Men were stealing food from each other. 2 men even talked about leaving the ship at the next port. But now, he shook his head in wonder. Now they actually enjoy being here. Finn smiled but said nothing. He knew the truth was more complicated. The food helped, but it was the listening that really mattered. When a man feels that someone cares about him, he becomes a different person. But trouble was coming. Finn had heard things in the kitchen that worried him. Razor had been talking to more men lately, not just Mace and Stump. He had been telling them that Captain Blackwood was leading them in the wrong direction, that there was better treasure to the south, and that the crew needed a stronger leader. A few nights later, Finn was in the storage room, counting their remaining food, when he heard voices through the thin wall. 3 more days, Razor said quietly. We take the ship in 3 days. I have spoken to 12 men who will join us. When the captain sleeps, we move. Briggs will not be a problem. He is strong, but slow. And the boy Cook, he is nothing. Finn's blood went cold. A mutiny. Razor was planning to take over the ship. If he succeeded, Captain Blackwood and anyone loyal to him would be thrown into the sea or left on a deserted island. Finn thought about what to do. His first idea was to run to the captain and tell him everything. But then he thought more carefully. If the captain confronted Razor directly, there could be a terrible fight. Men would die. And Finn was not sure which side would win if 12 men really had joined Razor. He needed a different plan, a plan that used the only weapon he had: food. The next morning, Finn changed his cooking completely. Instead of making the same meal for everyone, he started making special things for specific people. He baked a pie for Thomas, using the last of their sugar. He made a special fish dish for Dog-Ear Pete and told him, "You work so hard, you deserve something good." For the men he suspected had joined Razor, he was especially kind. He gave them extra portions and asked about their lives. One by one, he learned why they were unhappy. Some felt the captain did not respect them. Others were worried about money. A few simply followed Razor because they were afraid of him. That evening, Finn did something he had never done before. He asked the captain for permission to hold a special dinner on the deck. "The weather is beautiful," he said. "The men have been working hard. Let me make a feast." The captain was surprised but agreed. Finn spent the whole day cooking. He made everything he could think of: roasted fish with herbs, a thick meat stew with potatoes and carrots, fresh bread that he had baked 3 times because the first 2 batches were not perfect enough. He even made a simple cake using flour, sugar, and dried fruit. When the sun began to set, Finn served the feast on the open deck. He had arranged wooden boxes as tables and covered them with clean cloth. Lanterns hung from the ropes above, giving the deck a warm golden light. The men were amazed. Most of them had not seen anything like this since they had left land. They sat down together, all 30 of them, at the same tables. For the first time in months, there were no separate groups. Razor sat near the captain. Mace and Stump sat between men who were loyal to Blackwood. As they ate, Finn moved between the tables, filling bowls and cups, but he was also doing something else. He was talking. To Thomas, he said quietly, "The captain told me yesterday that you are the best navigator he has ever worked with. He said he would be lost without you." Thomas looked surprised. "The captain said that?" Finn nodded and moved on. To a man named Cooper, who Finn knew had joined Razor's group, he said, "I heard we are heading to Drake's Point next week. Briggs told me there is a merchant ship that carries gold there every month. Cooper's eyes lit up. Gold? Real gold? That is what Briggs said, but keep it quiet. It was not exactly a lie. Briggs had mentioned Drake's Point, though he had not said anything about gold. But Finn needed to give these men hope, something to look forward to, a reason to stay loyal to the current captain. As the evening went on, something magical happened. The men began to relax. They laughed and told stories. Old arguments were forgotten over shared plates of food. A sailor named Red Jack pulled out a small instrument and began to play music. Others started singing. Captain Blackwood sat at the head of the table, watching everything with careful eyes. He had been a pirate captain for 20 years, and he was not a fool. He had noticed the tension on his ship. He had seen Razor whispering. But tonight, as he looked at his crew singing and laughing together, he felt something he had not felt in a long time: hope. He called Finn over. "This was your idea?" he asked. "Yes, Captain." "Why?" Finn looked at the crew. "Because a ship is not just wood and sails, Captain. It is the people on it. And people need more than orders and treasure. They need to feel like they belong." The captain was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You are very wise for someone so young." Finn shrugged. "My mother always said that the kitchen table is where families are made." The night continued, and Finn kept watching. He saw Razor sitting quietly, not talking to his allies. The man looked uncomfortable. His plan had been built on anger and unhappiness, but tonight there was neither. Late in the evening, when most men were sleepy from good food and drink, Finn sat down next to Razor. This was the most dangerous part of his plan. "I made something special for you," Finn said, and placed a small plate in front of Razor. On it was a piece of cake, carefully decorated. Razor looked at the boy with suspicious eyes. "Why?" "Because Crow told me that you once saved his life during a battle. A man who saves another man's life deserves cake." Razor stared at Finn. Then very slowly, he picked up the cake and took a bite. Something changed in his face. It was small, just a tiny softening around his hard eyes. "It is good," Razor said simply. "Thank you," Finn replied. "You know, the men respect you. You have been here longer than almost anyone. The captain knows that too. He told me that you are one of the bravest fighters on the ship." Razor said nothing for a moment. "The captain said that?" He did. This was true. The captain had once mentioned Razor's fighting ability, though it had been in the context of worrying about him. But Finn chose to share only the good part. "He does not show it," Razor muttered. Finn agreed. "But he thinks it. Sometimes people are bad at showing what they feel. Maybe if you talk to him directly." Razor looked across the deck at the captain, who was laughing at something Thomas had said. For a moment, Razor looked like a very different man. Not angry, not dangerous, just lonely. "Maybe," Razor said quietly. 2 days later, the night of the planned mutiny arrived. Finn had not slept well. He had done everything he could, but he was not sure it would be enough. He lay in his small bed in the kitchen, listening to every sound on the ship. But the night was quiet. No shouting, no fighting, no footsteps running across the deck. When morning came, Finn went up to the deck and found something he did not expect. Razor was standing with the captain at the front of the ship. They were talking quietly, looking out at the sea. When Finn got closer, he heard Razor say, "I think Drake's Point is a good plan, Captain. My men and I will be ready." The captain nodded. "I should have talked to you more, Razor. You have given 10 years to this ship. That means something." Razor glanced at Finn, and for just a second, the smallest smile appeared on his scarred face. Then it was gone, and his expression was hard again. But Finn had seen it. That morning, Finn made the best breakfast he had ever made. Thick porridge with honey, fresh bread with butter, and strong tea. The whole crew sat together, talking about Drake's Point and the treasure that might be waiting there. Briggs came down to the kitchen while Finn was washing pots. The first mate leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. "I know what you did," Briggs said. Finn kept washing. Briggs shook his head. "No, you stopped a mutiny with food and kind words. I have seen it before on other ships. The whispering, the separate groups, it always ends in blood. But not this time." He paused. "How did you know?" "The kitchen hears everything," Finn said simply. Briggs laughed, a big, deep laugh that shook his whole body. "The kitchen hears everything," he repeated. "I will remember that." As the Iron Whale sailed toward Drake's Point, life on the ship was better than it had been in years. The crew worked together with new energy. Razor, instead of whispering in corners, now stood at the captain's side during planning meetings. His knowledge of the southern waters proved valuable, and the captain began to rely on him more and more. Mace and Stump, who had been Razor's closest allies, became regular visitors to Finn's kitchen. They would sit on barrels and tell Finn stories about their adventures while he cooked. Mace, it turned out, had once been a farmer and knew a lot about vegetables. He helped Finn grow small plants in pots near the windows, giving them fresh herbs for the first time. Even Morris, whose broken leg was slowly healing, began to help from his bed. He told Finn about recipes he had learned in different ports around the world. Finn wrote everything down in a small notebook that the captain had given him. The ship reached Drake's Point on a warm Tuesday morning. The captain had made a good plan, and the crew worked perfectly together. They found the merchant ship exactly where Briggs had said it would be. The battle was short because 30 well-fed, happy men fighting together were much stronger than anyone expected. The treasure was not just gold. There were spices from the east, silk from the south, and bags of sugar and coffee. When Finn saw the spices, his eyes grew as wide as dinner plates. "Captain," he said excitedly, "do you know what I can make with these?" The captain laughed. "I have a feeling we are all going to find out." That night, Finn created a dinner that nobody on the Iron Whale would ever forget. He used the new spices to make dishes that most of the crew had never tasted before. There was curry with rice, spiced meat with sweet sauce, and a dessert made with sugar, cream, and cinnamon. As the men ate and celebrated their victory, Finn stood by the kitchen door, watching. He was tired. His hands were sore from cutting and stirring all day. His clothes smelled of smoke and spices, but he was smiling. Captain Blackwood raised his cup. "Men," he said loudly, "today was a great victory, but we did not win because of our swords or our guns. We won because we fought as one crew, one family." He looked at Finn. "And I believe we have one person to thank for bringing this family together." All eyes turned to Finn. The boy felt his face grow hot. "To the pirate cook," the captain shouted. 30 voices echoed across the dark sea. Finn looked down at his worn shoes and smiled. His mother had been right. The kitchen table was where families were made. Even on a pirate ship in the middle of the ocean, that simple truth had not changed. From that day on, the Iron Whale became known not just as a fearsome pirate ship, but as the ship with the best food on the Eastern Sea. Sailors from other ships would sometimes ask to join, not because of the treasure or the fights, but because they had heard about the meals. And in the small kitchen below deck, a young cook with messy brown hair and quick dark eyes continued to work. He chopped and stirred and baked. He listened and talked and cared, and every single meal he made carried the same secret ingredient that his mother had taught him long ago. love. Finn had been the cook of the Iron Whale for 6 months when the ship arrived at the port of Santa Maria. It was a busy trading town with colorful buildings along the waterfront and dozens of ships tied to the docks. The captain gave the crew 2 days of rest, and most of the men rushed to spend their share of the treasure. But Finn had a different plan. He walked through the narrow streets of the town until he found the market. The market was enormous, stretching across 3 streets, filled with stalls selling everything from live chickens to golden jewelry. But Finn was only interested in one section, the food stalls. He walked slowly, touching and smelling everything. There were fruits he had never seen before, bright purple and deep orange. There were bags of strange powders that smelled sweet and sharp at the same time. An old woman was selling dried mushrooms that she said came from forests far to the north. A young man had a table covered with different kinds of salt, each one a different color. Finn spent almost all of his money. He bought sacks of new vegetables, jars of honey, bottles of oil, and bundles of fresh herbs. He bought cooking tools too, a better knife, a set of wooden spoons, and a small book of recipes written in 3 languages. When he returned to the ship, carrying all of his purchases, Briggs was waiting on the deck. The first mate looked at the bags and boxes and shook his head. "Most pirates spend their money on entertainment," Briggs said. "You spend yours on onions." "These are not just onions," Finn replied seriously. "These are sweet onions from the mountain farms near Porto Velho. They are completely different." Briggs raised one eyebrow. "They look like onions to me." "Wait until dinner," Finn said with a grin. That evening, Finn made a dish using the sweet onions, fresh fish from the market, and 3 of the new spices he had bought. The smell that rose from the kitchen was so incredible that men came back to the ship early from the town just to eat. During their stay in Santa Maria, something unexpected happened. The captain of another pirate ship, a woman named Captain Vega, came aboard the Iron Whale to discuss a possible alliance. She was known across the Eastern Sea as one of the smartest and most dangerous captains alive. She had short black hair, sharp green eyes, and she wore a long blue coat with silver buttons. Captain Blackwood invited her to dinner, and Finn was told to prepare something special. He was nervous at first. He had heard many stories about Captain Vega, and he knew that she had traveled to more places than anyone he had ever met. She would have tasted foods from all around the world. What could a 14-year-old cook on a pirate ship possibly make that would impress her? Then he remembered his mother's words. "Do not try to impress people with fancy things. Cook with your heart, and they will taste the difference." Finn made a simple meal, roasted fish with lemon and herbs, fresh bread, still warm from the oven, a vegetable soup with the sweet onions, and for dessert, a honey cake with cinnamon. Nothing complicated, nothing trying to show off, just good food made with care. Captain Vega ate quietly. She did not say much during the meal, and Finn watched nervously from the kitchen door. Had he made a mistake? Should he have tried something more exotic? When the meal was finished, Captain Vega put down her fork and looked at Captain Blackwood. "Where did you find this cook?" she asked. "He found us," Blackwood replied with a smile. Captain Vega turned to Finn, who was standing by the door. "Young man," she said, "I have eaten in the finest restaurants in Paris and Rome. I have tasted food prepared by chefs who have trained for 20 years. But this meal," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "this meal reminded me of eating at my grandmother's table when I was a child. That is the highest compliment I can give." Finn felt warmth spread through his chest. "Thank you, Captain Vega," he said. "I would like to offer you a position on my ship," she said. "I will pay you 3 times what you earn here." The kitchen went silent. Finn looked at Captain Blackwood, whose face showed no emotion. Then he looked at Briggs, who was suddenly very interested in his empty plate. Then he looked at Razor, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. Finn turned back to Captain Vega and bowed his head politely. "I am grateful for your offer, Captain," he said. "But the Iron Whale is my home. These men are my family. I cannot leave them." Captain Vega studied him for a moment, then smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. "Your captain is a lucky man," she said to Blackwood. "Guard this boy well. A person who can make others feel at home is rarer than any treasure." After Captain Vega left, the crew gathered around Finn. Dog-Ear Pete slapped him on the back so hard that Finn almost fell over. Crow picked him up and put him on his shoulders. Even Razor came forward and shook Finn's hand firmly. "You chose us," Razor said simply. "That means something." Finn laughed as the crew celebrated around him. He thought about his mother and the small kitchen in Port Clara where everything had started. She would have been proud, he thought, not because he was a cook on a pirate ship, or because a famous captain had wanted to hire him, but because he had found a place where he belonged. The Iron Whale left Santa Maria the next morning with a full crew, a kitchen stocked with wonderful ingredients, and a young cook who knew that the most important thing in the world was not gold or power or adventure. It was making sure that the people around you were fed, happy, and knew that someone cared.